You're out for a brisk walk, hitting your normal stride, when a sharp, cramping ache grips your calf. You stop, take a seat on a nearby bench, and within minutes, the pain disappears. It is easy to assume this is a simple muscle cramp, a sign of fatigue, or a predictable result of aging. If we view the body as an engineering system, the cardiovascular network functions as a massive fluid delivery pipeline. The muscles and the lower legs represent the most distant endpoints from the central pump. This pattern of recurring pain, triggered by activity and silenced by rest, indicates a specific change in how the system delivers fluid to those distant endpoints. Over decades, stressors like chemical toxins from smoking, high blood pressure, and excess cholesterol create microscopic damage along the inner walls of these pipelines. The body attempts to repair this damage by depositing fatty plaque over the abrasions. This process characterizes peripheral artery disease, or PAD. As the patch grows, it thickens, gradually restricting the internal diameter of the pipe. Because this buildup takes years to accumulate, the blockage develops without triggering early warning alarms. The pipeline can be reduced to a microscopic sliver before the reduction in fluid flow becomes obvious. During rest, leg muscles require very little energy. Even a narrowed artery can usually transport the baseline volume of oxygenated blood needed to keep the tissue alive. The mechanics change the moment you start walking. The muscle's demand for oxygen increases sharply. While a healthy artery would dilate to increase supply, an artery hardened by plaque remains rigid and cannot expand. This graph plots the resulting deficit. The flat line represents the physical limit of the restricted supply, while the rising curve shows the muscular demand. When demand crosses above the fixed supply limit, it creates an oxygen debt known as claudication. Sitting down stops the pain because it forces the muscular demand to drop back below the restricted supply limit. The sensation of claudication is the physical result of muscle tissue attempting to function while being starved of the oxygen volume it requires. If the blockage continues to grow, it eventually reaches a point where the artery cannot meet even the baseline oxygen requirements of a resting body. This stage is called ischemia. Starved of oxygen, the tissues begin to die. The skin may appear pale or blue, and small wounds on the foot lack the biological building blocks necessary to heal. Without an intervention to restore the flow of blood, this localized collapse of the supply line leads to gangrene and limb amputation. To treat the disease, doctors must first measure the severity of the blockage without invasive surgery. The ankle brachial index uses fluid dynamics to find the bottleneck. By comparing blood pressure at the arm to the pressure at the ankle, doctors look for a gradient drop. If the pressure at the ankle is significantly lower, it proves an obstruction exists in the line. Using these pressure differences allows clinicians to identify bottlenecks by applying the basic principles of physics. Repairing the line often involves angioplasty. A tiny balloon is inflated inside the artery to compress the plaque and forcefully expand the walls of the pipe. A stent is then deployed to maintain the repair. This metal scaffold braces the arterial walls, keeping the channel open so blood can move through the center. In cases where the artery is completely obstructed, surgeons perform bypass surgery. They construct a detour around the blocked section, creating a new path for blood to reach the lower leg. Restoring the volume of blood flow brings immediate changes. Warmth and healthy color return to the foot as the tissues receive the oxygen they need to function. These surgical interventions clear the local blockage, but they do not address the underlying systemic factors that caused the plaque to build up originally. Zooming out from the leg reveals the architecture of the cardiovascular network, a single, continuous, closed-loop system. Because the blood in your legs is the same blood flowing through your heart and brain, plaque buildup in the limbs often mirrors blockages in other vital arteries. For many, peripheral artery disease is the first visible indicator of a systemic issue that could eventually lead to a heart attack or stroke. Managing risk factors, such as stopping smoking, lowering blood pressure, and adjusting diet, stops the progression of plaque throughout the entire system. Regular exercise further improves the system's efficiency. The increased physical demand encourages the body to adapt by building collateral vessels, small natural detours that route blood around narrow points in the artery. Repetitive leg pain during exercise is more than a localized inconvenience. It is a signal from the system's endpoints. Identifying the cause of this pain provides an opportunity to address a systemic failure before it affects a vital organ or results in the loss of a limb.